Another key feature of 1920s American society, about which you are probably going to be asked, is racism and the Ku Klux Klan. America at this time still has a racist culture. Although slavery was abolished in 1863, this is about 60 years later, and there is still a great deal of resentment towards people who are from African American stock. There are, however, some differences in the way in which racism appears. There are some differences between the north and the south of the country. In the south of the country, certain states had adopted things called Jim Crow laws, which enforced the official segregation of whites and blacks. Black people would often have to use substandard amenities, whereas the white people were allowed to use more luxurious amenities, should we say. There was also segregation on buses, segregation of schools, and segregation of hospitals. This was not in every single state in the South, but it was in most of them. It also, black people in the South America often found that they would be persecuted and threatened occasionally by the general population there. And as a consequence, you had large numbers of black people from the southern states who started to migrate northwards to northern cities. In the north, racism was still prevalent, but it wasn't. It didn't look quite the same as it did in the south. There was no segregation in the north. Blacks and whites did live in separate neighbourhoods, and there were certain neighbourhoods of New York, Harlem, for example, where there were many black people living there, and they would be slightly more run down, shall we say, than some of the other areas of New York. But this wasn't an official policy, this is what had happened. And also in the north, there were more opportunities for black people, so they were able to find work more easily than they were in the south. Another key feature of racism in America in the 1920s was lynching. Now, although this happened all over the country, it was more prevalent in the south than it was in the north. So lynching, what is it? Essentially, lynching is any act of violence against black people who have been, or indeed against anybody who has been accused of a crime but has not yet been gone to trial. Essentially, it's when a mob goes and finds someone who has been accused of a particular crime, and they take over. The running of their trial. It's sometimes it can, or often it will result in the torture of that particular victim, that person who has been accused of this crime, and occasionally they will find that they end up being publicly executed, like the photograph over my shoulder. However, lynching is not an official policy. It is just something which happens in America, especially in those southern states, but it is not always investigated in the same way that an event like that would be investigated today. Finally, we've got the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan was a terrorist organisation which is set up and it's made up of WASPs, which are white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, which you'll find out more about in another video entitled Intolerance. And the Ku Klux Klan wanted a WASP America. They wanted America to be exclusively made up of white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. It was a secret society, however, within the societies where Ku Klux Klans developed, there were many, many respectable figures who ended up being part of the Ku Klux Klan. And although it was supposed to be a secret society, most people knew who the Ku Klux Klan members were in their particular area. And membership of the Ku Klux Klan was very high.